Hi, welcome to another video on our channel. Today we have some not necessarily best news for you. We are here to explain a very controversial change WG is planning to implement. Also, before we start, I'd like to point out that changes presented in this video are most likely final, and I wouldn't expect Wargaming to not implement them in the end. What will be this change? In very simplified terms, it's just a complete revamp of tank restoration system. First thing, Wargaming plans to change is complete removal of tank restoration tool on their support website. It means that all tanks you have sold before, Wargaming introduced in-game restoration tool and haven't bought them since, will be lost unless you get them back before it's implemented. For example, if you sold some of your low-tier tanks right after 5.5 update came out, you might not be able to get them back anymore if you don't do it now. When it comes to this part of the change though, there is still some hope. It seems like Wargaming still isn't 100% when it comes to this particular step, so there's still a chance for them not to do it or do it later. When it comes to the next change though, we aren't so lucky. This time there is nearly no chance Wargaming will change their mind. Second thing they want to do is making tank restoration cost 2 times higher than sell price of a said tank. So basically, if you sell your tank for 5K gold, after the update you will need 15K to get it back. Same goes for premium tanks. If you sell 1 for 1 MLN credits, you will need 2 MLN in order to restore it. The goal of this change is to discourage players from selling their collector tanks and preventing them from what we call collector tank cycle. In current system, as long as you have 1 collector tank in your garage, whenever you want to play other collector you've sold, you can just sell it and restore the other one. Thanks to this, you could essentially play all of your tanks while having only one of them in the garage at the time. It was very beneficial for players, since they could use up gold from selling other tanks for many other things. And Wargaming finally seems to crack down on this procedure. And although at first glance it might seem justified, the way Wargaming wants to deal with it is very bad for the players. First of all, let's remind everyone that this, as Wargaming calls it, exploit, has been in the game for over 5 years now. There's no way they didn't know about it earlier, yet they've allowed everyone to get used to it. Some people even thought it's a legitimate game function. And everyone who ever used this method as the result of Wargaming change will lose absurd amounts of gold. Most people using this method had most of their collectors sold, and now they will be forced to restore them all in order to play them ever again. And since the gold from selling them through those 5 years was mostly spent, even though Wargaming allows you to get each tank sold before the change for original price once, depending on how many tanks such a player owned, he may lose from as little as few thousand gold up to 200,000 gold. No, it is not a joke. We have so many collector tanks in the game that if somebody owned majority of them and used collector tank cycle, he will need to buy well over 200,000 gold if he wishes to play them ever again. Nobody could ever predict that such a change might happen. And Wargaming have never announced this procedure to be an exploit, therefore it seems just extremely unfair to make those players pay such an absurd amount of money just to get back tanks he technically already owns on his account. What it means for other players? Probably not much, besides them not being able to sell nearly any premium and collector vehicles in the future, since each time it will cause a 50% loss of credits gold, which could drain one's resources very quickly. Of course, many players may not be affected by this change, but we still think it is an extremely unfair change that will completely screw over thousands of players who had absolutely no way to know that what they did was wrong according to Wargaming. For now, we have no idea on when will this change come to the game, but we still advise you to restore vehicles you can't get back in game, since via support, you can only restore up to 10 tanks per day, so later on you might be too late if you have many of those. Realistically speaking, we don't think there is a way to make Wargaming go back on this change, but what we can do is make them make it a bit more player-friendly or give some sort of compensations for players affected by it. The whole problem came out of a fragile system, which Wargaming knew has loopholes and still decided not to fix it for over 5 years. Players who unintentionally used the exploit should get at least partially compensated for their losses, since Wargaming can only blame themselves for not either fixing it immediately or at least announcing that such a procedure is not what they intended. Obviously, we don't encourage any hate towards Wargaming. But what you can do is tell them what you think directly on their Discord server. We will give you a link in the description or by constructively criticizing them in reviews on different app stores like Google Play Store, Steam, Microsoft Store, App Gallery, etc. And that's all for today. Thank you for watching, and see you in another video.